Ham Saradava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunyam Gana Ganatam Sam Saradava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Varitramadhyam Manasura Senam Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Vaju Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramajanadu Shri Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Sadhu Swatmana Truptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturveda Shri Bhagavat Sadhu Swatmana Truptam Kridvaiva Truptim Bhajato Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Gabayarapara Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Gabayarapara Madhurya Lila Pratikchanasa Kanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nikunja Yono Ratikeli Siddhai Yayali Biri Yukti Apekshaniya Nikunja Jayuno Mati Keri Sidai Jayali Tatrati Dakya Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Satchadhari Dvaina Shamasta Shashri Rukta Tathava Yataeva Sarvi Satyadhari Shashri came to Prabhuja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda came to Prabhuja Sa Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasha Yasha Prasada Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Dine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesham Shunavadi Pachatadi Shatarine Devi Gauravani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavi Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavi Nityananda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gaur Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Gaur Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Nama Krishna, Jadavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. Hare Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudam. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhajaka Acharya Astutar Sarashishi Mahaji Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ace Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapaka Acharya Vaishnava Sirmani Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauru Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Paramadayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Pramanama Sankitaneka Janaka Prima Purushottama Shri Sachinandan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavranaya Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Yaga Ki Jai Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihatandanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabim Vrindavana Mathurdam Ki Jai Their Lordship Shri Radhanjala Mahadava Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Samswadra Dev Surashan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Ekachakra Dham Ki Jai Paramakrama Shri Guru Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jaganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mathuradharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Our glory to the Assembly Body Our glory to the Assembly Body Our glory to the Assembly Body Our glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladaini Praladaladaini Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapade Kavakara Kamalavare Nakam Aduta Shingam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Panubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Kavakara Kamalavare Nakam Aduta Shingam
केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश
जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव
जय नृसिंहदेव 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 जय नृसिंहदेव
जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज
जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
जयो जयो प्रभुपाद 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 जयो जयो प्रभुपाद
जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
जयो जयो गुरुदेव 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 जयो जयो गुरुदेव
जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि श्री भक्ति परस्वर विघ्नाशन कर सिंहरे भगवान की जय जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवतये वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवतये नमः वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवतये नमः श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo Krishna seva pavo Hey Abhinavasi Radha Krishna seva pavo Hey Abhinavasi Etamo Mara Sharanana Tarvancha Purna Tumi Kripa Kori Karatare Vrindavanavasi Moraya Vela Velas Kunja Diyava Aminayane Devo Sada Jogaluparasi Ene Vedana Sakilyanu Vatakara Sevani Karadi Dina Krishna Dasika Hey Namora Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Janikani Sapapani Brahmayatyavikani Sa Tani Tani Vanasanti Vagati Apade Pade Janikani Sapapani Brahmacharikani Sa Karitani Panasanti Panatina Pane Pane Janikani Pani Brahmatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasante Pranachana Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Brinda Devi, Jaya Brinda Devi. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaya Kesava Sutta Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Satavatai Namo. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satta Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Satavatai Namo. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satta Vishnu Bhakti Pradedeve Satavatai Namo. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whenever take shelter of your wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him and make his residence over his life. My desire is that you also give me a residence place, Guru Sri Vrindavan. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg to make me a follower of damsel to Raj. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your unmet servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always sing in love with Shishi Radha. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. Jitam Abhu
Swapanamachinam Bhavamaha Devaki Nivakanam Shira Vairagya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadam Jivanam Anandam Buddhivartanam Satatanam Pranamita Swadhanam Sarva Snapanam Param Vijayate Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahudani Cha Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amitak Smarani Nakala Etad Visita Vakaka Bhagavan Mahapi Duradaivam Visi Samihajani Namuraga Junada Visuni Sena Tavarapistana Manina Manadina Kirtaniya Adahadi Adanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Bhatagishapamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Kavatad Bhakti Rahaita Ki Twayi Ainandatani Chaknikaram Patitam Mam Shame Bhavam Buddho Kritaya Tava Padapankaja
Samichintaya Nayanam Galora Sudha Vadanam Gadagadavidaya Ulakaya Chitam Baku Ramanama Grahane Bhavisati Yuga Itam Nimishena Prakisa Pravisaitam Sunyaitam Jagad Sarvam Govinda Viname Ashishva Prabharatam Pinasumam Adashanam Abmahatam Karotuva Yatadhatava Vidadatulam Matpranasatu Saivanaparam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishnakam Ki Jai Mahavarannaya Krishna Glory to Sri
Krishna Kirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon, is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living beings, and thus you have millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen to this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Saksakam Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutri Smrti Bhakti. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy names of the Lord that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. Blaspheming devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. 2. Consider the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature in the pursuance of the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often in the Vedas as fruitive activities or karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripasindhubhyebhya pattanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadyasya yato nivayat itaratas chartesu avigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya yatam vayalitaratas chartesu avigyaswarat.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha.
Tejo Varimrida Jata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality Godhead.
O pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
The original living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation.
Of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
The water seen the fire, or land seen the water.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Only because of him do the material universe.
Temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature.
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma pujita kaitruvutra.
Dharma pujita kaitavutra.
Paramo nirmatsaranam satam.
Paramo nirmatsaranam.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
Shivadam tapa trayon mulanam.
Shivadam tapo trayon mulanam.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Kim vaparir Ishwaraha.
Kim vaparir Ishwaraha.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Kriti bihi susu sabhistakshanat.
Kriti bihi susu sabhistakshanat.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activity which are material motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of
Such
all.
truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavad,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established in his heart.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam,
Nikama kapator vritam palam,
sukhamakad amrita dravya samyatam,
sukmakad mritadravasam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Bhagavatam rasam,
muhur ahoraska bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although this nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls.
Including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shravadam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Hiryantaksto hi abhadrani,
Hiryantasto Hyabhadani,
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Vidunati Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is a self-righteous activity.
it is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling within everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within
acts as a best-wishing friend
acts as the best wish,
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the body constantly engaged in hearing.
Nastapresu bhadresu
Nasta Preshtabhadeshu,
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva,
bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke,
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad
and from the
and
devotees,
from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Rajastamo Bhava,
kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etar navidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service,
development process,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from all the pleasures.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And that's it.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam Prasanamanaso,
bhagavat bhakti yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga,
bhagavat tattva vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva
mukta
Jnanam,
sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangasya Jaya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
All these impurities are wiped
the
away.
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
Candidate remains steady in position of pure
becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and the sons of God.
Vidyate hridaya grantis
Hridaya Grantis,
chidyante sarvasamsaya
Sarvasam
shiyante jasya karmani
Shyanti Jasya.
Trista evatmanishvare. Thus, bhakti yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
That's it, Bhakti Yoga Siddhana.
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsayam samagram,
Enables to come to one to the stage of sunshine.
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
And this is the supreme authority personality.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Can one
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Verse number 50. Prayasa sadavo loke paredvan vesu yojita navyatanti nahishyanti
Vyatante narishanti
Yata Atma Gunashraya.
Jatta Atma Gundashriya.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystics aim at perceiving the all-pervading Supersoul, and the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentals are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distresses and happinesses are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee, and he was the rishi, and the rishi was a mystic. So Samika Rishi. Yeah. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaja Parikshit, Cursed by a Brahmana Boy. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, when we talk about transcendentalists, we can't include the karmis in it, because although they perform Vedic rituals, but they're doing it for material purposes, and they still have attraction to the material nature. However, we can talk about the people who do Astanga Yoga, the mystics, trying to develop tremendous powers, or the yoga siddhis. And we can talk about the empiric philosophers, or the jnanis, who are aiming for liberation, and the devotees. All three of those, if they're practicing properly, rise above the influence of the modes of material nature. And it's possible that they can attain Vaikuntha or Goloka. When I say they, only the devotees can go to Goloka Vrindavan. But the other two, it's possible that they can attain Vaikuntha. If there's even the slightest material desire, then they can't. But if they've purified their material desires, because that's the understanding of being free from the modes of material nature, one has purified of all material desires. Okay, so they don't really perceive material happiness and distress like the karmis. When the karmis has material happiness, they're happy. And when they have material distress, they're unhappy. But the devotees remain, at least the transcendentalists, remain always, well, you could use the word stoic. In ancient Rome, there was a whole movement called Stoicism. Stoicism means you're not affected by things that happen. Of course, the Stoics were not real yogis, but they tried to practice this maintaining equilibrium of the mind by not being affected by things that happen. But the transcendentalists don't do that artificially. They actually are experiencing something greater. You cannot give up something lesser unless you have something better. So they cultivate, like the jnanis, they cultivate knowledge. The yogis, they cultivate, or the mystic yogis cultivate mystical powers, and And the devotees, they cultivate devotional service with love and devotion for Krishna. So they're not affected by what happens in the material world. That is one sign of their, as we say, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. They are Prasanatma, self-satisfied by virtue of knowledge and realization. And they've attained that position by renunciation of sense gratification and acceptance of the goal of life being to become free of the modes of material nature and at least come to a transcendental plane. Unless one comes to a transcendental plane, they cannot really begin to understand anything spiritually. So they're prasanatma, which means na sochiti na kangsati, no more lamentation and no more material hankering or attraction to material things. As long as one has an attraction to material things, they are still in an insane state of mind. Why? Because day and night they're thinking of sense gratification. And because of that, they can't be peaceful. They're always making plans how to increase money, how to spend the money for sense gratification, how to accumulate many, many different gadgets that help them have more sense gratification. So, and then also they get frustrated because they can't have all the sense gratification that they want. So then they get angry, and then they plot to take revenge on those people who stopped them from getting what they wanted. Just like now, our ex-president is planning to start his own political party, and that would guarantee that the Republican Party would never win an election in the future. So it's all one of revenge and retaliation and anger after frustration. So this is explained, Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 4th to 6th verse. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya aprinoti. Nasadu manye yata atmano yam asan apiklesa da asadeha. And so forth. People are mad after sense gratification, and they do not know that this present body, which is full of miseries, is a result of one's fruitive activities in the past. Although the body is temporary, it is always giving one trouble in many ways. Therefore, to act for sense gratification is not good. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he makes no inquiry about his real identity. As long as he does not know his real identity, he has to work for fruitive results for sense gratification. And as long as one is engrossed in the consciousness of sense gratification, one has to transmigrate from one body to another. Although the mind may be engrossed in fruitive activities and influenced by ignorance, one must develop a love for devotional service to Vasudeva, or Krishna. Only then can one have the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence. So this is the problem, that this preoccupation with sense gratification, it just, even if one is successful, one remains in the material world and with no hope of getting out. Even if there's one desire, material desire, one remains a victim and of that misconception of life. So we victimize ourselves in that way. So that's a gross misinterpretation of what is the goal of life. If a person wants to be successful, successful is not how much money, how much power, how much beauty, how much fame, how much intelligence you have. The real success is how much devotion you have for Krishna. So that is the way to calculate if you want, success in life. How much do you know about your relationship with Krishna? How much are you acting in that relationship? And are you actually developing some affection and love for Krishna? That's the way to calculate success in life. But when people go to these mundane schools, they learn that success means making money and then showing it off with big, big houses, big cars, big companies, big this, big that, big stool. So what are we going to do with such misconception? We have to get rid of it. We have to kick it out. We have to see through it. We have to understand that that's not really the goal of life. So, therefore, the materialists worked to increase their sense gratification, their prestige, etc. And the devotees, they worked to increase their character. By character means good character. Like, for example, if you're walking down the street and you see a wallet on the sidewalk, and you pick it up, and it's full of money and credit cards and license and this and that and pictures, so forth. So what do you do with it? Well, one person might say, this is my lucky day. I just got a lot of money, and I'm going to use it to buy everything I want for my own happiness. And I don't care who this wallet belongs to. It's their own problem. It's not my problem. I'm just going to enjoy. So that's one way to look at the wallet. Another way to look at the wallet is, I'll take the money, but I'll turn the wallet in to the lost and found. Another way to look at it is, hey, if I lost my wallet, I would really hope that an honest person picks it up and returns it to me. Therefore, do unto others as you would do unto yourself. So therefore, I'm going to return this wallet intact. I'm not taking one penny out of it. And I just hope that in the future, if I ever lost my wallet, someone would do the same thing. So there are different ways of looking at the wallet. But the different ways of looking at it determine what character traits you have, what culture you have. So the Vedic culture is full of actions in the mode of goodness and further in the mode of transcendental goodness. So therefore, why are we reading the Srimad Bhagavatam? We're trying to learn how devotees, real devotees, act in life. What is their culture that leads them to act like that? And also we learn what happens when you don't act like a devotee. So we have stories about Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and so forth. And we have stories about Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Yudhisthira, Lord Ramachandra, Krishna himself, and Sukadeva Goswami, etc. So that Bhagavatam is full of explanations of the character and culture of devotees and of those who are against devotional service. So, therefore, if we are subjected by circumstances to associate with people who are only interested in sense gratification and money and so forth, unless we have this education and this culture of Krishna consciousness, we'll get contaminated by it. Either by ignorance, because no one ever taught us what Krishna consciousness is, or by the preponderance of the sense gratification culture. And the preponderance, it means the majority of people are into sense gratification. We're a minority. And they look at you and say, wow, are you sick? Is there something wrong with you? Do you want an aspirin, or you want to see a psychiatrist, or what? They think you're crazy. Therefore, Prabhupada wrote an article, Who is Crazy? And in that article it says anybody who's running after sense gratification is crazy, because they're just going to increase their sojourn in the material world of birth and death. Sojourn means they're going to live in this world almost eternally until they wake up. So some people never wake up, of course, which is very sad. Therefore, the devotees are killers. In Kali Yuga, the devotee kills. So in the Dwapara Yuga, Arjuna was killing, right? In Balakur, etc. But in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya came to kill. But his killing was a little bit different than Arjuna's killing. He kills the desire for sense gratification, not the person. And Arjuna had to actually kill the people, right? So Prabhupada says that we should also kill in this Kali Yuga, but we kill people's desire for sense gratification. Now, how do you do that? Well, number one is being an acharya, in the sense of teaching by example. And then number two is teaching by preaching. Teaching by preaching, right? By preaching, there are two aspects of it. One is giving the good example and giving bona fide knowledge in a compassionate way. So just like if you eat too much, you'll have a tummy ache and a headache, or you might throw up. And if you try and bombard someone with too much information, they get overwhelmed and they say, oh, I don't understand anything. In fact, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm just not going to listen anymore. So you have to be patient and be able to present things in a palatable way so that people can accept it. Now, for a devotee, it is absolutely essential to regularly hear discourses on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, because every day Maya is finding new ways to derail us from the path of devotional service. That's her job. And Krishna is giving intelligence. Intelligence either for doing the right thing or intelligence for doing the wrong thing. So there's such a thing as transcendental knowledge, and there's such a thing as intelligence in ignorance. So, therefore, in what we see, what we've been talking about for the last couple of days, is how Sankaracharya presented his Sarirak Bhasya, his commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and how it's misleading. So we've discussed several aspects of how it's misleading. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about it, because it's extremely important that we understand this. So it says, well, yesterday we talked about Omkara as the primary Mahavaikya, but Sankaracharya deflected in the focus on Omkara and said that the secondary Mahavaikya, Tadvamasi, is the primary Mahavaikya. So that's misleading. So this is explained in the Nyaya Shastras. In the Nyaya Shastras, there's such a thing as an honest debate, there's such a thing as a bad debate, and there's such a thing as really despicable debate. So honest debate, called Vada, is when two people debating, they're both seeking the truth. And therefore, they present their point of view, but respectfully. They don't speak harshly, and they follow the rules of presentation. There's usually these 5 rules of presentation of an argument. In the Vedic tradition, you establish the thesis, and you refute the counter-thesis, and with adequate evidence or means of knowledge, meaning pramanas, Vedic principles of how to, epistemological principles, such as pratyaksha, anumana, and sabda. And you give proper indirect or hypothetical arguments also. And then the conclusion should not have any contradiction in it with any principle or shastric principle. or against any principle of Siddhanta. Siddhanta is all the conclusions by which a person is convinced to surrender to God. That's what Siddhanta means. And then, and each side should use the 5 steps of demonstration of an argument without any misinterpretation or cheating. And they should clearly recognize a thesis to be defended and a counter-thesis to be refuted. So those are 5 steps for proper, let's say, useful debate where both sides want to find out what the truth is. But then there's something called jalpa, which is a bad debate. And jalpa is where one person wants to win, and they will use different ways to win the argument. So usually what they do is and this is what we're going to read right now. This is exactly what Sankaracharya did, and then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also did this to try and defeat Lord Chaitanya. So when Lord Chaitanya was speaking to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about Vedanta, the Bhattacharya presented various types of false arguments with pseudo-logic or false logic and tried to defeat his opponent, meaning Lord Chaitanya, in many ways. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction, his own, let's say, shastric understanding of the truth, right? So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the word vitanda indicates that a debater not touching the main point. Okay, so there's 2 types of bad debate. One is called jalpa, and the other is called vitanda. But in both types of bad debate, one side wants to win, and the other side also wants to win, but they're not willing to exactly follow the honest debate way of presentation. So the dishonest way is explained now. The word vitanda indicates that a debater not touching the main point or establishing his own point simply tries to refute the other person's argument. Now the difference between jalpa, bad debate, and vitanda, like really disgusting debate, is in jalpa they actually are not as, let's say, violently offensive as vitanda. But they're both using the same type of technique. It just depends on the degree of nastiness. Right? But what is the technique? That is, the debater not touching the main point. So when Sankaracharya says that the main Mahavakya is Tatvamasi, not Omkara. What he's done there is establishing, not touching the main point, and establishing his own point. So this is a trick of bad debate, to win the debate, with no interest in determining what the truth is. See, in a bad debate, both sides may not be interested at all in finding out what the truth is. They're just interested in winning the debate, and there's 2 degrees of nastiness in order to win. So therefore, Sankaracharya says that this Tatvamasi is the main or primary Mahavakya. Well, what is Tatvamasi? Well, it says here that Tatvamasi is in relationship with the jivas and their way of relating to the cosmic manifestation. So it's a warning to the jiva not to mistake the body as the self. Because as soon as you think that the body is the real person and you don't pay any attention to the existence of the soul, or you deny the existence of the soul, then your purpose in life is sense gratification, and you can do anything from following the rules or not following the rules to get sense gratification. Okay. So That's the real meaning of Tattvamasi. And what does it mean literally? You are the same. So when a person says Tattvamasi, they're misinterpreting it, and they're thinking, oh, at a certain point I become Bhagavan. So Jiva becomes Bhagavan. This is the Mayavad philosophy. See? And that's but they're misinterpreting Tattvamasi. Tattvamasi means not that I am he, but I am his. Madhvacharya gave that understanding of the word Tattvamasi. That means I am his eternal servant. That's what it means. But I am he means at one point the jiva becomes Paramatma. This is the Mayavadi misinterpretation of the meaning of Tattvamasi. So instead of becoming the eternal servant of the Lord, they want to become the Lord by some yoga practice or renunciation or whatever. And therefore, just by a little change between he and his, you see, there's a world of difference. And they're expert at deflecting the focus on the primary point to some secondary point, and then by misinterpretation, and establishing their own primary point, right? And by doing that, they mislead people for generations, for thousands of years. They mislead them, and when they're misled, they don't attain freedom from the cycle of birth and death to go back to Godhead. They stay in the material world, going over and over again from one species to another and suffering. A little bit of happiness and mostly distress. So you see how nasty this is. Just a little difference by taking the focus off of the main point, putting it on some secondary point, establishing that as the main point, and misinterpreting it. Right? There's two deviousness here. One, they take the main, they ignore the main point and establish some lesser point. And two, they misinterpret the lesser point. So then a person is completely confused. They don't actually understand what the truth is. They think that something that's not the truth is the truth from that point on, and it ruins their life. Just like we just talked about, what is the real criterion of success? Now, when I went to school, I didn't have to read it in a book. It's just the whole atmosphere of the school was success is you make a lot of money and you spend the money and show off your success, right? So just like, and it's on every level. It's on every level. It's from the poorest guy up to the richest guy. Just like I had an auntie, and we nicknamed her Diamond. Why? Anytime we'd go see this auntie and uncle, whenever we'd walk into their house, right, and she would say, "Oh, hello, I'm very happy to see you," and showing her ring finger with the diamond on it. You know, she wouldn't look at, I mean, she would always be like this, "How are you? How is everything?" You know, and she'd be showing her diamond ring, right? She's crazy, completely crazy, right? That's why we called her Diamond. It's like a little joke, you know, we're going to see Diamond, not Auntie, you know. So people are like that, you know, I mean, you think, no, it's not like, no, it is like that. People are crazy, you know. And they were not even rich people, right? Just ordinary people, but crazy because she had a diamond, right? So this is what's going on. And this whole misconception of what is success in life is all pervading. That everyone thinks, I gotta get a lot of money. Now I can do it by selling marijuana, or I can do it by getting a PhD, but I gotta get the money. And when I get the money, I'm gonna show it off, right? So this is, and there's no end to it. And therefore, the Bhattacharya, he used this principle of deflecting interest from the main point to some secondary point, misinterpreting the secondary point, and then from that point on, there's a whole cascade of misunderstandings. It's not that there's only one misunderstanding. There's misunderstanding on many different levels after that. That's why Lord Chaitanya says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. So the word vitanda indicates that a debater, not touching the main point or establishing his own point, simply tries to refute the other person's argument. When one does not touch the direct meaning, but tries to divert attention to misinterpretation, by misinterpretation, he engages in chala. So you have the word vitanda, which means nasty debate. And the technique is taking the focus off the main point to some subordinate point, and then misinterpreting the subordinate point. So that's called chala in Sanskrit. And then Lord Chaitanya continued to defeat the Bhattacharya. He said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the central point of all relationships. Acting in devotional service to Him is one's real occupation, and the attainment of love of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. These three subject matters are described in the Vedic literatures. So, in other words, there's Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. These are the three, he says, subject matters of all the Vedic literatures. And that's the same thing when you say Tatvamasi. Say Om Tat Sat. No, not Tatvamasi. When you say Om Pranava, Om Tat Sat. Om refers to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat is Radharani, the perfect example of pure devotion and love. And Om Tat Sat, and Sat is the living entity who has to change their point of view from sense gratification to devotion. Right? So that is a representation of, and the way to do that in Kali Yuga is not by following the Varnashram Dharma, it's by chanting Hare Krishna and regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That's the way to do it, right? And that's what we're doing. So, Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasichayam Saham Hridi Sanivisto, Lord Krishna confirms the statement, Vedaischa Sarviraham Eva Vedya. The actual purpose in reading the Vedas is to learn how to become a devotee of the Supreme Lord. The Lord himself advises, Manmanabhava Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru. 9th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, verse 34. Therefore, after studying the Vedas, one must then execute devotional service by thinking always of the Supreme Lord, Manmana. Always think of me. Become his devotee, and then worshiping him, Manmanabhava Madbhakto Madhyaji, worshiping him, and always offering him obeisances, Namaskuru. So, this is called Vishnu Aradhana. The word Radharani comes from this word Aradhana. It means being devoted completely to Lord Vishnu. And it is the supreme occupational duty of all human beings. So we see there's only one place where there's no possibility of devotional service. There's a possibility of devotional service in the material world. There's a possibility of devotional service in Vaikuntha and Goloka. There's only one place where there's no possibility. That is the Brahman effulgence. So the Mayavadis are cursing people by their misinterpretation, by their deflecting interest, focus on the main point to secondary points, for people to go through a lot of trouble to attain Brahman, and eventually you're going to fall down because they believe, they've been, programmed to believe that there's nothing beyond Brahman. You see? So it's a dead end. It's a dead-end philosophy. It doesn't work. It's meant to defeat the real purpose of life, which is to go back to Godhead. Even though they may, some of them, not all of them, a few, may attain the Brahman realization, but they will fall down. So then it says, This is called Vishnu Aradhana, and it is the supreme occupational duty of all human beings. It is properly discharged in the Varnashram Dharma system, which divides society into Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, and Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. This is the whole scheme of the Vedic civilization. However, this institution of Varnashrama is very difficult to establish in this age, the age of Kali. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises that we not worry about the Vedic system of Varnashram Dharma. Rather, we should take directly to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and simply hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from pure devotees. This is the process recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is the purpose for studying the Vedas. So this is what we should teach our kids. This is what we should understand ourselves. If one tries to explain, next verse, if one tries to explain the Vedic literature in a different way, he is indulging in imagination. Any interpretation of the self-evident Vedic version is simply imaginary. So when Prabhupada came to the West, he understood this. Therefore, his main point was chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, and listen regularly to the class. And he was giving class regularly in the first little temple. So, chant and dance. I forgot that. You have to dance also. Dance for the pleasure of the Lord. So it says, when a conditioned soul is purified, he is called a devotee. By the way, Prabhupada made everything easy, right? Not that he changed anything. Lord Chaitanya made it easy, right? But we see that people like to make things difficult. Before, it was a simple thing. You chant Hare Krishna 6 months, and under the observation of the temple president and senior devotees, and if they think that you've been following sincerely, they've been watching you, then they recommend you for initiation. You write a letter to Srila Prabhupada and send him your beads, and he sends you back a letter with the beads. You're initiated, right? And then you continue following Krishna consciousness sincerely for another year. You get your Brahman initiation, right? It wasn't complicated. It was very quick, and it was simple. As long as you were always in the association of senior devotees and following everything sincerely. And now you have first and second initiation, and you just continue doing Sankirtan, book distribution, following, Mangala Aarti, this thing, that thing, and preaching. And it was very simple. It was not complicated. There was no, stratification of, this guy's a Brahmana, and this guy's this, and that one's the other thing, It was all, everyone was equal, everyone was working cooperatively, It's only when people wanted to, let's say, even in Prabhupada's time there were some problems, but after Prabhupada disappeared, then things became a lot more complicated, right? And they keep getting more complicated. So, but actually, in those early days, it was very simple. And there was nobody wanted to be better than anybody else. They all wanted to work, everybody wanted to work together and please Prabhupada. That was the whole point. Okay, so then it says here that a devotee has his relationship only with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it says, when a conditioned soul is purified, he's called a devotee. A devotee has his relationship only with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his only occupational duty is to execute devotional service to satisfy the Lord. It's very simple. The service is rendered through the Lord's representative, the spiritual master, Yasha Devi Parabhakti Yata Devi Tata Kuru. It's one who is completely dedicated and surrendered to the spiritual master and Krishna. Then Krishna reveals all the imports or all the understanding of the Vedic philosophy to such a soul, a surrendered soul. When the devotee executes devotional service properly, he attains the highest perfection of life, love of Godhead. Savaya pumsa paro dharmo yata bhakti rahoksajay. The ultimate goal of understanding the Vedas is to be elevated to the platform of rendering loving service to the Lord. That's the real success in life. The Mayavadi philosophers, however, consider the central point of relationship to be the impersonal Brahman, the function of the living entity to be the acquisition of knowledge of Brahman, resulting in detachment from material activity, and the ultimate goal of life to be liberation. Well, how can you be attached to something that's impersonal, right? Everyone is seeking attachment to a person, not something impersonal, right? So the whole thing is a misinterpretation. Okay, some people may attain liberation, emerge into the Brahman, but because they've been taught incorrectly, they'll fall down. It's just a matter of time. So, therefore, all of this, however, is simply due to the imagination of the conditioned soul. It simply opposes him to material activities. In other words, yeah, someone following that path of Mayavadi philosophy gives up material activities. Okay. But it's a negative thing. That's a negative thing, giving up something. What is the positive thing? They don't have the positive thing because they're not giving it. There's no relationship to Krishna other than his impersonal form. So all of this, however, is simply due to the imagination of the conditioned soul. It simply opposes him to material activities. One should always remember that all Vedic literatures are self-evident. No one is allowed to interpret the Vedic verses. If one does so, he indulges in imagination, and that has no value. So there's no such thing as, I think this means this. No, there's no question of I think this means. The only thing we can do is understand shastrically. And understanding shastrically, we have to understand the direct meanings of the words. We should not take secondary and tertiary meanings of the words to try and find some new nuance. So when it says saranagati, completely surrender, that's a clear understanding that we surrender everything to the Lord like Arjuna did, and you follow his example of always listening and taking instruction from the Lord or from the Lord's representative and engaging in devotional service without a material motive. Simply, the only motive is to please Guru and Krishna. And therefore, it's very simple. It's not complicated. Actually, therefore, the next little point that I wanted to make is that it says, when Sanatana and Rupa Goswami met with Lord Chaitanya, they said, by serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage in your as your permanent eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master? And Prabhupada writes, in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared every entity to be an eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the constitutional position of all living entities. So this solves the problem of who am I? Every kid that's growing up, especially when they reach puberty, are trying to figure out, who am I exactly? Right? And some people ask that question throughout their whole life. I haven't really figured out who I am exactly. But here, they can learn right away when they're just a little child and keep that understanding throughout their whole life. Our constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a dog or servant is very much satisfied to get a competent, perfect master, or a child is completely satisfied to possess a competent father, so the living entity is satisfied by completely engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. He thereby knows that he has a competent master to save him from all kinds of danger. Unless the living entity comes to the guaranteed protection of the Supreme Lord, he is full of anxiety. This life of anxiety is called material existence. To be completely satisfied and devoid of anxiety, one must come to the position of eternally rendering service to the Supreme Lord. This verse is also from the Shrotra Ratna 43 by Sri Yamunacharya. So you see, the Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they read Yamunacharya's Shrutaratna. Yamunacharya is a Sri Vaishnava, right? But he's a Vaishnava. He's a pure Vaishnava. Therefore, they're referring to his book, the Shrutaratna, and quoting it to Lord Chaitanya. After hearing the prayer of Dabirakas and Sakaramaik, so they're repeating this prayer of Yamunacharya, by serving you constantly, meaning you, O Sriman Narayana or Krishna, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage in your permanent eternal servant, always feeling joyful to have such a fitting master? So that means that someone is sanata jivatam. Someone has a sanata, a real and pure transcendental master, a guru, and the original guru is Krishna. So after hearing this prayer from Dabirakas and Sakara Malik, that was their Muslim names before they became devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear Dabirakas, you two brothers are my old servants. My dear Sakala Malika, from this day, your names will be changed to Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatana. Now please abandon your humility, for my heart is breaking to see you so humble." Actually, Prabhupada writes, this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's initiation of Dabirakasa and Sakara Malika. They approached the Lord with all humility, and the Lord accepted them as old servants, as eternal servants, and he changed their names. It is to be understood from this that it is essential for a disciple to change his name after initiation. Sanka Chakradi Urdhva Pundra Dharanadi Atma Lakshanam Tannama Karanam Chaiva Vaishnavatam Ihochyate. After initiation, the disciple's name must be changed to indicate that he is a servant of Lord Vishnu. The disciple should also immediately begin marking his body with tilaka, urdhva pundra, especially his forehead. These are spiritual marks, symptoms of a perfect Vaishnava. This is a verse from the Padma Purana, Uttarakanda. A member of the Sahajiya Sampradaya does not change his name. Therefore, he cannot be accepted as a Gaudiya Vaishnava. If a person does not change his name after initiation, is to be understood that he will continue in his bodily conception of life. Wow. So then one other point, and then we'll finish. So this Sankaracharya, of course, was ordered to do what he did, and to understand what he did and how he did it is very important. So it says in Adi Lila 7th chapter, the Vedic sound vibration, Omkara, the principal word in the Vedic literatures, is the basis of all Vedic vibrations. Therefore, one should accept Omkara as the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the reservoir of the cosmic manifestation. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 13th verse, the glories of Omkara are described as follows. Om iti ekaksharam Brahma. This verse indicates that Omkara or Pranava is a direct representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, if at the time of death one simply remembers Omkara, he remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore immediately transferred to the spiritual world. Omkara is the basic principle of all Vedic mantras, for it is the representation of Lord Krishna, understanding of whom is the ultimate goal of the Vedas, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvir aham eva vedya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand these simple facts explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and yet they are very proud of being Vedantists. Sometimes, therefore, we refer to the Vedanti philosophers as Vedantists, those who have no teeth, V meaning without. Vedantist instead of Vedantist, right? The statements of Sankara philosophy, which are the teeth of the Mayavadi philosopher, are always broken by the strong arguments of Vaishnava philosophers, such as the great acharyas, especially Ramanujacharya, Sri Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, break the teeth of the Mayavadi philosophers, who can therefore be called Vedantis, toothless. As mentioned above, the transcendental vibration Omkara is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 13. Again, he repeats it, Om iti ekaksharam Brahma. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the transcendental planets. If one actually understands that Omkara is the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he chants Omkara or the Hare Krishna mantra, the result is certainly the same. The transcendental vibration of Omkara is further explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 17, Pitaham asya jagato matadata pitamaha vedyam pavitram Omkara rik samayajra evacha. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. Similarly, the transcendental sound Om is further explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verse 23. Om tat sat iti nirdesto deso brahmanas trividas smita brahmanas tena vedas cha yagyas cha vihita pura. So we see Omkara is explained many places in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And it's either Omkara or the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You're directly, it directly points to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. From the beginning of creation, the three syllables Om Tat Sat have been used to indicate the Supreme Absolute Truth, Brahman. They were uttered by Brahmanas while chanting the Vedic hymns and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Throughout all the Vedic literatures, the glories of Omkara are specifically mentioned. Srila Jiva Goswami in his thesis Bhagavata Sandarbha says that in the Vedic literatures, Omkara is considered to be the sound vibration of the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only this vibration of transcendental sound can deliver a conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. Sometimes Omkara is also called the deliverer Tara. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with Omkara vibration. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Therefore, Omkara has been described by the great commentator Sridhar Swami as Tarankura, the seed of deliverance from the material world. Since the Supreme Godhead is absolute, his holy name and his sound vibration, Omkara, are as good as he himself. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the holy name, or Omkara, the transcendental representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has all the potencies of the personality of Godhead. Nam namakari bahuda nija sarvasaktis tatra pita niyamitak smarani nakala. All potencies are invested in the holy vibration of the holy name of the Lord. There is no doubt that the holy name of the Lord, or Omkara, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. In other words, anyone who chants Omkara and the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, immediately meets the Supreme Lord directly in his sound form. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is clearly said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, personally appears before the chanter who engages in chanting the Astakshara, or 8-syllable mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. A similar statement in the Manduka Upanishad declares that whatever one sees in the spiritual world is all an expansion of the spiritual potency of Omkara. On the basis of all the Upanishads, Srila Jiva Goswami says that Omkara is the supreme absolute truth and is accepted as such by all the acharyas and authorities. Omkara is beginningless, changeless, supreme, and free from deterioration and external contamination. Omkara is the origin, middle, and end of everything, and any living entity who thus understands Omkara attains the perfection of spiritual identity in Omkara. Omkara, being situated in everyone's heart, is Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 1861, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridese rajuna tistati. Omkara is as good as Vishnu because Omkara is as all-pervasive as Vishnu. One who knows Omkara and Lord Vishnu to be identical no longer has to lament or hanker. One who chants Omkara no longer remains a Sudra, but immediately comes to the position of a Brahmana. Simply by chanting Omkara, one can understand the whole creation to be one unit, or an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. Idam hi Vishwam Bhagavan Ivetaro Yato Jagat Sthana Niroda Sambhavaha. The Supreme Lord, Personality Godhead, is himself this cosmos, and still he is aloof from it. From him only this cosmic manifestation has emanated, in him it rests, and unto him it enters after annihilation. Bhagavatam 1.5.20. Although one who does not understand concludes otherwise, Srimad Bhagavatam states that the entire cosmic manifestation is but an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. Realization of this is possible simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Omkara. One should not, however, foolishly conclude that because the Supreme Personality of God is omnipotent, we have manufactured a combination of letters A, U, and M to represent him. Factually, the transcendental sound Omkara, although a combination of the three letters A, U, and M, has transcendental potency, and one who chants Omkara will very soon realize Omkara and Lord Vishnu to be non-different. Krishna declares Pranava Sarva Vedesu. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Bhagavad Gita 7.8. One should therefore conclude that among the many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Omkara is the sound incarnation. All the Vedas accept this thesis. One should always remember that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are always identical. Abhinat Vam Nama Namina. Since Omkara is the basic principle of all Vedic knowledge, it is uttered before one begins to chant any Vedic hymn. Without Omkara, no Vedic mantra is successful. The Goswamis therefore declared that Pranava, Omkara, is the complete representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they have analyzed Omkara in terms of its alphabetical constituents as follows. A Karenochyate Krishna, Sarva Lokaika Nayaka. U Kareno Uchyate Radha Ma Karo Jiva Vachaka. Omkara is a combination of letters A, U, and M. A Karenochyate Krishna, the letter A, Kara, refers to Krishna, who is Sarva Lokaika Nayakaha, the master of all living entities and planets, material and spiritual. Nayaka means leader. He is the supreme leader. Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam. The letter U, Kara, indicates Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Krishna, and M, Mahakara, indicates the living entities, jivas. This Om is the complete combination of Krishna, his potency and his eternal servitors. In other words, Omkara represents Krishna, his name, fame, pastimes, entourage, expansions, devotees, potencies, and everything else pertaining to him. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu states in the present verse of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarva Vishwa Dhamma, Omkara, is the resting place of everything, just as Krishna is the resting place of everything. Brahmano hi pratistaham. So this purport goes on a little more. But you get the point. When Sankaracharya says the Mahavaikya is Tatvamasi and takes the emphasis off Omkara, and then misinterprets what Tatvamasi means. He's completely cursing people to remain forever in the cycle of birth and death. So he redeemed himself by saying, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate, before he left his body. But his disciples, ignoring that, codified and glorified the Sarirak Bhashya as the real commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, and completely have baffled people, confused people, and cursing them to take birth over and over again. Hare Krishna, Glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.